Welcome to the deep dive. Today we've got a listener request for a real shortcut into the spiritual heart of the Teduray people in Mindanao, Philippines.
Yeah, it's a fascinating world.
We're focusing specifically on their top deity, Diwata Meketefu, and how that whole creation story, well, it's more than just a story, isn't it? It seems like a blueprint for how they live.
Absolutely. And it's important because, there's this historical split. For over a century, really, the Teduray divided into the acculturated lowland groups and the more traditional upland groups.
Gotcha.
And our focus really has to be on the upland community. They're the ones who've actively preserved these myths we're talking about, kept them going.
Got it. Okay, let's unpack this then. Meketefu, also called Tulus, the Great Spirit. But the sources also mention Sualla. Where does that come in? Seems a bit different.
Yes, that's a really telling detail. Sualla seems to be, a direct borrowing phonetically. It almost certainly echoes the Islamic phrase subhanallah.
Meaning God is perfect.
Exactly, which shows this early mixing, the syncretism, even at the highest level of their belief system. But the core narrative, the creation part, that feels uniquely to Teduray.
Right. And that core story involves like a divine team almost, Meketefu or Tulus and Miniden. Miniden was the first creator figure, using mud for mankind.
That's the one. Miniden started it, but Meketefu gets this title, the Perfecter. Because Miniden's initial creations, they weren't quite functional.
Functional is putting it mildly.
Yeah.
Based on the sources.
They were flawed. And the details are pretty specific, surprisingly so. Like the first people had upside-down noses.
Upside down?
Yeah, so they collect rainwater, apparently, and constantly get sick. And maybe even more critically for the species, their sexual organs were completely mismatched.
Mismatched, yeah.
The sources describe the male's part like a tiny red pepper and the female's like a snail shell. Totally incompatible.
Oh, so no way to procreate then. Life just stops.
Pretty much. So Meketefu has to intervene. The story says he used an old bolo, a big knife.
A knife. For divine work.
Yeah, very practical. He physically corrects the anatomy, turns the noses the right way up, reshapes the mismatched parts so they actually work together. It's so, grounded.
It really is. Almost mundane for a supreme being. Does that practicality kind of diminish his status?
What's fascinating is it seems to do the opposite. It really emphasizes creation not as this single perfect act by some distant god, but as a cooperative thing, iterative.
Like trial and error, almost.
Exactly. Needed teamwork, partnership, and that whole idea, improvement, working together, reciprocity, that seems to define their whole social setup.
So the flaws in the teamwork up top, they mirror how things work on the ground.
Precisely. The sources call them a radically egalitarian society. They really push back against hierarchy. And that goes for the spiritual world, too. The Great Spirit isn't some, remote, scary overlord.
Okay, and this is where the Belian comes in, right? The shaman figure.
Yes, the Belian is central, the mediator, basically, between humans, the Kelawan, and the spirits, the Mejnalu.
And the relationship there is unusual.
It's extraordinary, really, if we connect this back, because it's so non-hierarchical. The old ethnographies, they actually say the Belian could, talk directly to Tulus, even share a meal with him.
Share a meal with the supreme deity.
Imagine that. He's not just reachable, he's, like a dinner guest. Accessible.
That completely changes how you'd think about, say, getting sick. It's not God punishing you.
Right. It's viewed more like a misunderstanding or an altercation, as one source puts it, with a spirit. A relationship problem.
So if illness is basically a conflict, how do you get better? How do you restore health?
Through talking it out, seriously. Through negotiation. Jurisprudence, almost.
Yeah.
Not through sacrifice or just, begging for forgiveness.
How does that work?
They hold what's called a spiritual tioan. It's like a formal discussion and adjudication. The Belian represents the human side, argues their case, but also negotiates directly with the spirit involved.
Like the spiritual peace talk.
Exactly like that. Healing only happens when they reach an agreement. A kind of peace treaty that satisfies both sides. It's all about mutual respect, finding balance, restorative justice, really.
You can really see that strong sense of identity, that resilience, playing out elsewhere too, like in their history with the Mamalo and Tabunawe legend.
That story acts like a foundational agreement, explaining why they chose to remain non-Muslim and moved into the highlands, defining themselves clearly.
But they weren't totally closed off.
No, not at all. They were quite savvy, actually. They incorporated some outside ideas, like the concept of an evil spirit, Satan.
Satan, like Satan.
Very likely, yes. But they were very clear, apparently, that this idea was brought in by foreign priests. They adopted it, but they framed it carefully within their own system, acknowledging its outside origin.
And one last thing on language, because it seems important. The name, Diatang Meketefu, that word, Diwata.
Ah, yes. Crucial point.
Its original meaning, from Sanskrit Diwata, is powerful, right?
Right.
Like a high god, a major deity.
Absolutely. Which is worlds away from how it's often used now, especially after colonial influence, to mean something like a fairy or a nymph.
Which totally diminishes the term.
Yes.
Strips away that sacred power.
Completely. So if we tie this all together, the whole cosmology, from a god who fixes mistakes, who perfects rather than dictates, down to a shaman who negotiates peace treaties with spirits, it all directly reflects a community deeply rooted in cooperation.
And tolerance, nonviolence.
Exactly. Continuous dialogue. It's a profound way of seeing the world embedded right into their daily lives.
It really is. So maybe a final thought for everyone listening. What does it really mean for us today if your spiritual well-being doesn't depend on submitting to some higher power, but actually hinges on your skill in negotiating a peaceful settlement with the unseen world?
Something to really mull over.
Definitely something to think about. Thanks for diving deep with us.